representing 3.57%. The rest of the candidates we shall be mentioning as we go on, but for now I have picked the first three, and we will be discussing starting from now as we look at the different dynamics and variables going on in this election. Let me start with the newest visitor here, Morrison.
Yes.
What do you make so far of this election from your impression?
Well, I think first of all, the numbers I see are not surprising, because there are a number of data points that pointed to a clear Museveni victory and a clear NRM victory. Remember, before we voted on January 14th, there were two major elections that happened across Uganda. The first one was local council elections. And those local council elections, the NRM won by over 70%. And if you're talking about the grassroots, retail politics, where the voters are and where the operational architecture of any elections operation, it is at the grassroots level. And that is where the NRM won by 70%. Then there was another election of the youth council across all the districts of Uganda. And these youth, 80%, NRM took it. So I think it was becoming much more clear, if you look at that trend line, that the NRM was also going to perform extremely very well when it comes.
But if I made a follow-up of
when
that,
it comes to the general election,
the youth won, including in areas of Kampala, in areas of Wakiso. But what is turning out so far shows a shock or a trouncing of actually the incumbent members of parliament and ministers have fallen victim in Kampala, in central Uganda, in areas of Wakiso.
No, but you see,
so what is the what is that mismatch about?
The dynamics of the politics at constituency level, at parliamentary level, are extremely very different from presidential level. And if you look at Uganda's parliamentary attrition rate, the number of, these MPs don't come back. It's usually over 60%. Most of them, the incumbents, really, they do actually lose. And by the way, make no mistake, the other thing that I see is that supporters of Kyagulanyi and Bobi Wine, I think, really overrated him. Because remember, he has not managed to expand.
How did they overrate him?
Let me finish this point.
The facts are showing.
No.
I just want to remind you that the facts that we are getting, and these are provisional, I must add.
But look at the trend line, it's very clear.
The facts that we are getting shows from Luero, across Kampala, up to Masaka, from, I think, Bujiri, so far, across Busoga, up to Kampala, and then across Mityana. I think it is Mubende so far. We shall be getting these figures. I must add that these are provisional. They show that the guy actually mobilized massively and has got his people winning and defeating both some FDC, but most importantly some NRM. Isn't that not?
I have always believed, and I stated it, that Bobi Wine Kyagulanyi was always a provincial candidate. I have always really said that. So for me, that is really not surprising. But also remember that previous candidates like Kizza Besigye have always defeated President Museveni and the NRM in the central region. For many years, Kizza Besigye used to sweep northern Uganda, but the dynamics changed. And the point I was trying to make before you actually interjected is that Bobi Wine has failed to expand the Besigye coalition. Because remember, in 2006, Kizza Besigye got 37%, when Museveni got, I think, 59% at that time. And I can tell you that this election, Bobi Wine is not going to get 37%.
Okay.
So to that extent, the architecture of politics, so the map of politics in Uganda, in terms of red, yellow, and whatever, it has remained the same. So I think it is important now for Ugandans to go ahead and heal, because I think Bobi Wine didn't promise the truth.
Okay, Mwenda, coming at that point, is that the same impression you have? Or what do you think about these results as they stand? 4 million for Museveni, 62% so far. 1.9 for Bobi Wine, 30% so far, but still counting. what do you think about them? And then make a comment following from what he's saying, that Bobi Wine promised lies, especially in relation to the changes in parliamentary seats.
Well, first of all, I think that Bobi Wine has realigned Ugandan politics in a fundamental way, in really a fundamental way. Morrison is not right to say that Museveni Besigye used to win Central. No. Museveni always won Central. Besigye won Kampala, Wakiso, and Mukono in 2016.
True. Yeah.
He didn't win any other district, I think.
Yeah.
I need to check, but I remember 3 districts he could have won here. Maybe Masaka.
Greater Kampala. And
Yes, but Museveni always won Buganda.
Yes.
That is one. And Museveni did not perform very well in northern Uganda in 2001, 2006, and 2016. In 2011, he did slightly better. It was, he got about 45%, but he was always defeated there. What Bobi Wine has done, and I think this is a boon for Museveni, it's a good thing for Museveni as a candidate, is he has wiped Museveni out of Buganda, right? But I think the price of wiping Museveni out of Buganda was to consolidate Museveni's support in the West, because Museveni had an average vote per district in Western Uganda of about 70%. Now he has above 85%. Then in the north and northeast, Teso and Lango, Acholi, West Nile, Besigye was a competitive candidate there,
Yeah.
striking within 40, 50, 60, 65, 70% depending on which election. But Bobi Wine has failed to make a mark in the north. So Museveni has enjoyed growth across the whole country. And then where I agree with Morrison is that Bobi Wine became a provincial candidate, contained in Buganda and Busoga. Very little of eastern Uganda outside of Busoga has Bobi Wine won. So essentially, Bobi Wine has realigned politics whereby NRM, all its senior ministers have lost in Buganda.
All of them.
Without exception. We are waiting. I want to see which one of them has won. And Bobi Wine has been beating himself in some districts like Masaka by 20 to 80%.
Yeah.
So that's a serious realignment, because Museveni, you go to areas like Luweru, where Museveni used to win and where he lost
Is the NRM's maker,
yes,
as they call it.
Yes, Museveni has been wiped out there. So I think that Bobi Wine got what I would call an ethnic vote for Baganda. Baganda turned up to vote
Didn't
for
you expect it?
Actually, not to the degree he has beaten Museveni. I thought Bobi Wine would defeat Museveni in many parts of Buganda, but Museveni remained competitive. The only areas Museveni has won, like Liantonde, like Mubende, there are Banyoro and Bahima there. You go to Nakaseke, Museveni has barely 50%, but Nakaseke has a lot of Valalo there, Bahima, and Banyarwanda there. So Museveni has also won Sembabule. Again, it's in Buganda, but it's not ethnic Baganda there. So Baganda have changed. But the more Baganda have changed, also the more people in the north have changed towards Museveni. I ask myself, is Uganda going back to the original politics of the 60s and 80s, where Obote had created a coalition around Buganda? You know, Buganda in 62 was asking for a special status. So if you ever wanted to isolate Buganda, you could rally the rest of Uganda against Buganda. Now it's not Museveni who has done it, incidentally it is Bobi Wine who has rallied Uganda against the rest of Uganda. Because how do you explain Museveni's performance in Teso?
Yes.
Museveni is above 70% in Teso areas.
Including, I think he beat Amuriat in his polling station.
Yes,
own polling station.
yes.
He has beaten Amuriat in his own district, Kumi.
And his average vote in Teso is above 70. In Western Uganda is above 85.
Yeah.
In the north is above 65.
Kirukura, where I think he has got 98 point something.
Yes, he got 98%. Kamwenge 93.
But look, but before I bring Bobi in, Andrew, you're saying Bobi Wine is an ethnic candidate or provincial candidate, you and Morrison call it. But why don't you give credit to Bobi Wine, an upstart guy, who is picking votes that not even Besigye picked in Kiruhura, the number of votes, I think. In places like Ibanda, I saw about...
No, that's not true. That's not true.
700
let me give you the numbers.
Yeah.
Museveni won in Kiruhura, which is Museveni's home village, or home district. Museveni got 87% in Kiruhura. Besigye got 90% or 10%. Bobi Wine has about 1.3% in Kiruhura. 1.3. In fact, outside of Buganda and Busoga, Bobi Wine is performing... In fact, this is the ideal situation, I think, for the opposition. I don't know whether it is practical to work. If you had a ticket of Besigye and Bobi Wine, so that Bobi Wine can rally Buganda the way he has rallied it. Besigye, because he came from Western Uganda, had the capacity to push Museveni down from his current 85-87% to say 70-68. Then Besigye was competitive in Northern Uganda, getting 45-60% in particular areas, and Northeast Teso. So if Bobi Wine could have delivered to Besigye, Busoga and Buganda, they could have forced a second round or even one defeated Museveni. What I don't know is the voter behavior. Would do a ticket where Bobi Wine is a vice presidential running mate. It's not under our constitution, but you can announce it in advance that we are running as one team, me and Bobi. I don't know whether Baganda would have shown broken ranks with Museveni to vote Besigye because he has Bobi Wine as his attached as a vice presidential running mate. You see what I mean? I don't know voter behavior there, how it would act.
Good.
But what I have seen is that for every single gain that Bobi Wine has made, Museveni has gained another elsewhere about 2 or 1.5.
Gobi, conversely, given the numbers that are being reported in West, let's first leave North and parts of East. Would you accuse the president of gathering similar provincial, as they are calling it, votes, or his is a different, a different reality out of a different voter behavior? Why these figures mismatch that Andrew is and Morrison is partly referring to?
Charles, we started on this conversation yesterday.
True.
That perhaps, and already with very limited kind of data which you had gotten yesterday, we had seen a trend pointing to the return of sectarian vote in Uganda. Like Andrew has said, it's now very clear when you look at the map and also how the votes are coming in, the return of these results, that the sectarian vote is back, in the sense that the Baganda have voted massively Bobi Wine and his party members who are again Baganda. But also you need to look at the West and see that Ankole and the surrounding ethnic groups have also massively, this time, voted for Yoweri Museveni.
Except the Bakonjo. Banyoro, Batoro, Bajangoro, Bachiga, which is one language. They have voted massively for Museveni.
I will not go into splitting hairs, but that is very clear now.
Batoro have a historical problem.
But even where
I'm sure they did not hear
Morrison, why are you speaking about it in low tones?
Because your statement had very interesting undertones that are very provincial.
Let me say it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Let me say it, Andrew. What Morrison is saying, that you see the Batoro have a historical problem with the Bakoni.
Which is true. There was even a rebellion by Bagonjo to break out from Toro Kingdom.
don't bring your clan politics into my conversation.
Sorry, Prof.
But the second conversation was that it has brought about ethnic politics.
It's a serious one, this one.
Okay, Gobi, continue.
You know, this one is he calls himself the old man of the clan, and he has
also,
that clan.
He also one time
politics,
declared himself the deputy, I think deputy prime minister or the
Deputy King, after all. I never declared myself. So, Kabamba Guru Kid, the first appointed me Deputy King to him.
Gobi,
So on a serious note, even where President Museveni now made inroads into the north, the east, where Besigye was always challenging him in a way which he had not seen before. This time when he became number one, the number two in those places is the
someone
homeboy.
from there, homeboy.
Is the homeboy. In Iteso,
It is
Museveni is
Amuriat.
leading, Amuriat second.
True.
There's no Bobi Wine there.
True.
In the north, Museveni is number one, Mao is number two in several districts.
No, but that is in
Acholi.
Arua it is not, in Bobi it is
Acholi.
not, in Acholi, that's in
Acholi.
Acholi, yeah, which still reinforces
Because
the
he's a
point
homeboy of Acholi, not
Yeah.
necessarily. When I say the north, actually, I was referring to Acholi.
That's a major problem.
I
Please,
know.
people want to be Don't say that again, because you can cause problems
I'm
up there.
causing problems already in you. I can see. what is happening.
But it is okay.
So it's kind of, we are back to that politics where I think I've read it in history. I read the book of Professor Karugire, where it was quite so easy for anyone to mobilize the rest of the country against a certain candidate by just pointing at a Muganda candidate being supported by fellow Baganda, and it would become so easy for someone to sell it to other ethnic groups, especially in the north and in the east, that look, these guys here are trying to create a Buganda kingdom within Uganda. But this is not by design.
Going forward, and I need us to, you are, you know, trusted analysts, and you're speaking to an audience which is national in character. I need you, when you make that point, and it is fundamental, I need you to tell us, going forward, what should the candidate that will win this election ensure that this problem is rooted out? Because even in the 10 points program, I think it is number 4, which is talking about national unity.
Yeah.
And can it be achieved amidst this kind of return?
I was actually coming there. I would think that given the signs that the incumbent might retain this top seat in the country, he is going to have a very, very odious job of ensuring that he doesn't use too much emotions in terms of what message are the Baganda sending towards him, and ensure that this Buganda question is addressed in this. I think Bobi Wine came in and mobilized the Baganda to return a vote to mainly those whom they think were more acceptable and also big servants of the kingdom, because this has been quite clear in the campaign. The Katikiro of Uganda came out with very strong statements. We are going to welcome anyone who is going to serve our interest of the kingdom, respect our Kabaka, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And to me, I think that was a message very clear to the voters within the kingdom of Uganda, that it's time they voted those who are good subjects of the king. And I think that has happened in a way that the people of Uganda voted overwhelmingly the people in red, the no, because that wind came in that way.
Probably, let me take Rokakamba. This is a big national issue. Let me take it back to maybe where we should have started from. Is there something fundamentally wrong with a candidate strategizing and looking at the figures, and the figures in Uganda show, I think if I'm not wrong, Central Uganda, a population of about 5.7, 5.8, followed by Western, a population of about 4.8, 7, 9, followed by Eastern as the third, a population of about 4.4, and Northern Uganda about 3.6. If I am a politician and I want to win, what is wrong fundamentally? Is there anything wrong with looking at the figures and saying, I need to strategize here? And if by some coincidence I happen to come from that place which is most populous and I can win it, so be it. Is there anything wrong with that?
Because you
and
see,
would you say Bobi Wine is the first to use it if what the assertion is true?
no, because you see, since independence and the national resistance comes on board, you know, the idea of tribal and sectarian politics is very much unprincipled and cannot really deliver really national development. That's why, you know, if countries like Kenya, where it is self-evident that, you know,
It's actually clearly used.
there it is very clear.
Yeah.
You can see the problems that they have had. And I think as a country, we had moved. And I think even with this glitch, I think we can really still move forward. Because if you look at the past election, I remember looking at a newspaper, the New Vision, and it had published, the polls, and you had candidate Museveni leading, then you had Chiza Besigye, then you had Amama Mbabazi, then all of them.
Actually, five of the leading candidates
they
were all from Western Uganda.
And I was like, wait a minute, okay?
You were jolted.
Yes, and then, President Museveni runs, becomes number 1. Chiza Besigye runs, is number 2. Norbert Mao, in the election where Norbert Mao ran, he was, they were even defeating him in his backyard. Yeah. So, I think for me, that was like, I was looking at a detribalized...
Don't remember that Mao ran with Olaro Tundu.
Yeah, even Olaro Tundu was there, but Besigye defeated them. Museveni defeated, and these guys are from, Western Uganda and mostly the Southwest. So to that extent, for me, I thought Ugandans had shifted from tribal sectarian to actual interests. And these interests can be economic, they can be social, they can be really other aspects. And I think the reason why Northern Uganda, if you will, has been voting Museveni, I think it has been for rational reasons. Beyond the war that happened, you can see that there has been very serious investment.
You should go there. I should whisper to
yes,
you
there has
that
been,
if you go there right now, people are saying they are voting not for development issues,
I think there has
but
been
because they are voting for where there is financial resources.
Let me because you see, even in this election, by the way, there are some things we haven't looked at. For example, in Rukunjiri, where I come from, Besigye and
where
FDC,
I also come from.
the UI Moko, they had, the wife comes from my village. So it was, the Buru took it over. It became FDC entirely. NRM only had one member of parliament, Paula Turiahikayo. And Rujumbura, Jim was defeated. It was Riam Hueza FDC, and then you had Kajinda Roland in the municipality, and then the woman MP, Betty Muzanara, who was also FDC. But now it has flipped. The seat that was held by the NRM has been taken by FDC, but all other seats, Rujumbura Jim is back, the municipality is back in the hands of the NRM. It has changed.
And by the way, Morrison, note this, Museveni got above 85% in Rukunjiri, yet he got 48% last time. Besigye got 51, Museveni got 48%.
So you can see what's
even the Bakos there now have practiced the same thing now.
So
yes. In other words,
so I think we have to be careful about what's going. If you look at West Nile, the NRM has swept West Nile. I think when Honorable Wante said she was shifting the gate from Okoboko to Pakwach at the bridge, perhaps she was correct, because I have seen her. She has been extremely very active there, and Museveni has swept really that entire region. So I agree with Andrew that Museveni has made very serious gains, beyond Uganda, beyond the Uganda region. But even then, I still believe that there could be some other factors we need to look at that are beyond the tribe. Of course, I know Bobi Wine was this Twebe thing that he was talking about. In my view, was not even covert or hidden tribal. It was very clear that Twebe Reremu was about, and that's what they used to even chase Besigye from running for office this time around. But I still believe, because Uganda and Central is highly urbanized, very many young people, high level access to ferment of information and interactivity, and then this pop star who comes and promises them heaven and earth. Okay. So I think the NRM and President Museveni must be honest about the issues that are facing facing this area. Take them on if it is unemployment, beyond Emioga and all these other programs, figure out innovative ways to make sure that many people in this region, which is a huge contributor for Uganda's GDP, is really engaged. So,
Andrew, no, sorry to interrupt you, but I just wanted Andrew to just pick it up from there. What do you think? What do you relate to as being the main cause of this failure of NRM in Central and parts of Busoga, in your view?
Well, I can speculate. First, remember that this is the first time Baganda have had a competitive candidate. Remember, Baganda have contested against Museveni. Samogere in 96, he didn't perform well in Buganda, and Savannah Kizito in 2006. So that, first of all, tells me that Baganda do not vote tribally. Yeah. Because they have had senior politicians like Samogere and Savannah Kizito who have run against Museveni, and Uganda have still voted for Museveni.
Even Besigye himself,
question we should ask ourselves,
they voted for Besigye himself,
yes,
means
so
they don't vote, including even Museveni support.
Exactly, they voted largely for, they never voted for their own sons, who were elder statesmen, great politicians. So the question is, why did Bobi Wine perform so well in Uganda and whip NRM out? Please remember that NUP, right now, if my numbers are correct, has about 52 MPs.
Yeah, so far.
FDC about 30. UPC about 7, 9, UPC, DP 7.
UPC about 9.
9. So, but that performance, why therefore did Baganda turn to Bobi Wine, which they do not do for Samogere and Sebana Kizito, and this guy of Jema, Muhammad Kibirigi, Mayanja? I think that the reason is that there is something Bobi Wine touched. For the first time, they had a credible candidate who is a homeboy, who has actually appeal. The second thing about Buganda is it is the most urbanized part of Uganda. Imagine Kampala alone has 1.3 million registered voters, and Wakiso district around it
1.2
has not 1.2. Actually, if you look at the I don't want to keep going to my phone because I'm going to
1.2 voters.
1.2 million. The Electoral Commission recently posted number is about
1.4 Kampala, then 1.2 Wakiso.
1.2 Wakiso. So that's 2.6 million.
Yeah.
So you can imagine. And then there is Mukono. So urban people tend to vote more for the opposition, and because Buganda is the most urbanized, we have a large population of urban people. Also, that increases his margin. But also there have been issues of land that have not been addressed. And finally, you cannot rule out the fact that they had their own son for the first time who is a competitive candidate. I think the counter reaction to that is that from Teso I had these talkings, from Lango, from Acholi, and from West Nile, that people don't trust Baganda first and foremost. There is some animosity that has never gone away from our pre-independence days up to our independence days. The second thing also is, outside of Buganda is our son, many people do not find Bobi Wine having the gravitas, the pedigree, the stature of a presidential candidate. So if you have a sentiment about him in Central, that sentiment may not be repeated in. And then there was some campaign. I don't know why Western Uganda so heavily turned towards Museveni, because Museveni's numbers in Western Uganda have been slowly but steadily declining.
Speak to it, just a little. Someone called me last night after the show here, after midnight, and said, Charles, I'll be honest with you, and he was calling me from, I think, from around Kazo, and said, there are many people who have said they have decided to vote Museveni because of the scare. The truth of the matter is that there are few days to elections, there was a lot of scare, and people massively decided to return home out of fear. Now, do you think that fear could have contributed to the large turn-up in some of the areas, especially in Western? And
so I want to correct you, Charles, I want to correct you. So here, let me give you the updated numbers. You know, I'm head of the Electoral Commission, yet I have sources in the Electoral Commission. Right now, from 30,000 polling stations, which is 86% of polling stations,
yes,
Museveni has 5.3 million votes, which is 58.7%. Bobi Wine has 3 million votes, which is 33.3%. Amriat has about 4.1%. So we can say that. But of those 86, remember 86% of the polling stations are 9 million.
Yeah.
If you add 14%, the total voter turnout is around about 10.2 million. Registered voters are above 18 million. That is 55 to 57%.
Meaning it is much lower than
the
of
voter
2016.
turnout is excessively low. 2016 it was 68%.
Yes.
Now it is 55 to 57%. So there is, actually yesterday I had the impression that there was massive turnout. The election result is showing us there was very low voter turnout. Low voter turnout favors Museveni and disfavors his opponents. And I am sure that many people in Western Uganda who were Besigye supporters stayed home. They did not have, the reason for the high performance of Museveni may not be because Westerners turned towards him. It is that Museveni's opponents in FDC did not find, having lost Besigye, they did not find in Bobi Wine a viable alternative. And in many parts of northern Uganda, you need to look at Bobi Wine and observe him. Many people in the opposition make that mistake. He's not a person, many people, traditional society of Uganda would say this is a person of presidential material. There's something about him that falls far short of that pedigree, that stature. He doesn't have it. And to be blind to such a weakness.
Are you falling for the American politics, where they say the only one president that has been below 6.2 feet is it Truman, and they say this was not presidential. Our presidents are supposed to be tall, move like Obama, like a rock star and all that. Are you falling for that? You're just seeing him from
I don't know, because you see,
physical appeal.
People know him as a musician, and he needs to have time to transform from a Rastafari, a weed-smoking Rastafari singing musician, to a presidential candidate. I mean, I know that this voter turnout is a result of that many anti-Museveni people may have stayed away, precisely because of that.
But you didn't answer the question of the one, just a minute, the one on Western Uganda, because Mwenda was wondering, and then I sort of interrupted him with the example I was giving. But what would you relate to the massive turnout voting for Museveni in West?
But this is what I'm saying. There is no massive turnout to vote for Museveni. I think that Museveni's numbers have gone up because his supporters showed up to vote, but many of his opponents didn't vote. Because our voter turnout rate now, I think, is below 60%. It's about 55 to 57%, maximum 57%, as I'm calculating it here on my phone. So my suspicion is that the biggest influence on this election has been voter turnout.
Okay.
Why do we have exceptionally low voter turnout? Is because the supporters of Besigye in the north, in the northeast, in West Nile, and in Western Uganda were not willing to endorse Bobi Wine. They did not vote.
Yes. And why didn't they vote? Why didn't they endorse
Bobi Wine?
No, Amuriat then. They are FDC supporters.
He did not look. Normally in Uganda we have a two-horse race whereby they vote for the guy who is likely to win. I'm sure they realized there was nobody here. This was the M7 race. Let's leave it to the M7 guys.
We will add to that. Who is coming next? Yes. All your hands were up.
Yes.
Yeah, gave up.
What I quickly wanted to say is that it's always a two-horse race. Then you have the outliers who are always ignored. Because even talking about pedigree, you had in this election people with really steady hands who are presidential, people like General Muntu, people like Norbert Mao. But once Kyagulanyi, because of that musical pop star, pulled up, then it became a protest vote. And that's the vote that against Museveni, which Besigye has always captured. So people are like, whoever has a bit of shake to take on Museveni, nobody wants to vote and lose. They're like, maybe our chance rests with Robert Kyagulanyi. So, but when he pulled up, then I think there was again another reflection in the country. That reflection was, wait a minute. Now, the commander-in-chief test came on board. Because the biggest issue, again, beyond other issues, is this peace, stability, and really knowing that you have somebody who would be in charge of the country, and you wake up on a Monday after the elections, you open your shop, and that shop is safe. And I can tell you, especially 52% of the voters are women, they take some of those issues extremely very seriously. So this other thing that can Bobi Wine run a country, can he be a credible commander-in-chief? I think across all these other areas, that was weighing heavily on the minds of the voters. Then the issue of the pandemic, to try and also explain Andrew's issue around the voter turnout. You see, voting in a pandemic, people are worried about this virus. So wearing masks, should I go, should I not go? So I think that heavily impacted on the voter turnout.
Should I travel? Should I stay?
Yes.
Traveling is expensive. Why should I travel for 200,000 just for a vote and all that?
I wanted to buttress something Andrew has said, and it's a brilliant point, that in this election actually, outside those areas where Bobi Wine appealed to the younger people, especially those of his ethnic kind of identity.
Maybe the technical team should bring back that graph, the graph of Uganda, the map of Uganda showing that now that is a reflection.
Look at Uganda. That's the Uganda of next 5 years.
Yeah.
It's going to be like that.
That's now even.
That island of, red around the central Buganda, and then some pocket in the Elgon, especially around the Mbale city, and the rest of the country is yellow. Now, but the point Andrew is making is so fundamental and we shouldn't lose it. This election is going to have very low turnout, partly because those areas where Besigye was dominant, his supporters didn't turn up to vote. They actually stayed home and said, first of all, the NUP guys came on a ticket of abusing and disabusing Besigye as one of those candidates who have been giving Museveni a soft landing. And this message annoyed a lot the people of FDC. I know they have had a candidate in Amriat, but they knew that Amriat didn't stand a chance. And you can see his return of votes is quite very low.
That's correct.
And because of that, by staying home, they gave Museveni a chance to appear as if he has reclaimed most of that turf which Besigye has taken. But it's mainly because those guys didn't come. Here in Kampala and Wakiso, you are going to have actually some of the lowest turnout once the final tally is made. I think Wakiso will bring in something like less than 400,000 voters. And Kampala, something like less than 500,000 voters. And here you are talking of the most populous area of opposition. And much as they have won the seats and so on, they are getting very low in terms of
suppressed
absolute figures? Numbers of votes that Bobi got. On the voting day, I drove around my home area, and by midday, no, here in Mutungo,
which one is your home area?
You find the whole, you know, you are very good at interrupting people who are speaking. The whole place who had finished voting by midday. And the ballot books were still full. The boxes were halfway, and I knew that this
turn-up was going to be problematic.
It's going to be very, 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 very low.
Let me add something to what he's saying.
Yes.
Let me add something. So I'm just looking at, of course, right now we have 86% of polling stations reporting with 9 million votes.
Yeah.
Museveni has 5.3 million. Bobi Wine has 3 million.
Yeah.
So, but what does it tell us? It means that of the 14% remaining, which is about 1 million votes remaining to be counted. Let me assume they stay the same. Museveni has 60%, Bobi Wine has 30%, like that. It means maximum Museveni will go is get 6 million votes. Bobi Wine will get 3.4. In the last election, Museveni got 5.9, Besigye 3.5. Although the voter register has increased by 3 million, from 14.9 to 18 point something, the actual number of votes cast will not have fundamentally changed.
Yeah.
That shows you that this election had a very low voter turnout. Somebody, I think, Morrison, you said the pandemic could have influenced the turnout, yes. But also, the absence of Besigye, I'm beginning to think there's something we didn't understand. The absence of Besigye in the race, who raised this issue, could have discouraged many of his supporters from coming to vote. You know, we are still, although we talk about institutions, I believe that we are still a society of peasants. Even us in urban areas, we are from rural areas, we have this attachment to individuals, individual persons, that you have an emotional attachment to an individual, and that individual's absence can mean everything.
And there was a mistake, which fundamentally the boys in red made, by trying to paint a picture that Besigye actually was not a credible challenger.
But do you remember, Govi, that they even stoned him at Obarange?
Yeah.
People of NUP, you know, dressed up in
Even
yellow.
in Arua.
Yes, but the
remember in Arua,
before we lose this point, there is something additional I want to put.
But for me, what I'm wondering,
just one quick one, and that is, who are these people who joined the voter roll? It is the young people, the 3 million that you're talking about. Today, there is evidence that the young people did not actually break for Bobi Wine, because it's not showing in the numbers. It shows that it was a lie, that the young people are supporting Bobi Wine.
But
because where are the votes?
Sitting in my position here, sorry, Professor, sitting in my position here, I'm just wondering and laughing at how some of you who were sharp critics of Besigye initially are now becoming his disciple to be in his absence.
So where did you get the disciple part of it?
No, it's about
That you are really...
it's about making sense of the numbers you
Yeah.
see on that map.
Okay.
It's not about, you know, trying to mean that Besigye now is a very wonderful candidate or so on. But the point is, Dr. Besigye is one of those who came out and changed forever the trajectory of the politics of Uganda by especially demystifying President Museveni in terms of opposition and so on. I remember when Bobi Wine was in one of those, I think the Antonde, and he said that I'm the only candidate who has opposed, who has actually been a true opponent of Museveni. Most of these other guys were his buddies. They work together in the bush and they are and you know, you are soft. Besigye tweeted just one word with a question mark. Really? And I think that statement touched him and his supporters a lot. It was a bit like demeaning him, that all along he had been
and his effort
in bed with Museveni. He was pretending to be opposing him. And I have a feeling that most of his supporters did not actually participate in this election, because one, they didn't want to even support Amri. They looked at it as something which is going to kind of try to make this election credible, and yet they wanted to really leave it as an election which was not as credible as their candidate Besigye. You know, for them, it's a life candidate.
Let me
start us off in a minute, and then I'll bring Morrison and Mwenda on the same. Mwenda started by saying that he mentioned an issue about individual, individual equality. Does what you gentlemen are now referring to mean that this whole thing about multi-party politics is neither here nor there, that after all we are still steeped in real individual merit, and which is why this kind of effect could have occurred?
Yes, partly, of course, individual merit.
And what does it mean for opposition, for multi-party politics going forward now in the next 5 years?
You know, I don't know whether we have multi-party. First of all, parties here. Because when you look at the way individuals behaved towards, I think when Bobi Wine came and created the NUP, all of a sudden all parties collapsed. They all joined NUP. Why? They were not actually just getting a card because they wanted a new party called the NUP, but they were looking at how do I win the next election. And most of those actually who picked that card, especially here in the central, they have won. So they made a wonderful calculation. And I would want to think that NUP is going to face a very big test in the near future on how those people are going to coexist in that. Because now all of a sudden you're going to see egos. For example, who's going to be the leader of opposition
in parliament
out of them?
Which brings another
it's going to be a very fundamental
experience
issue
that FDC went through.
NRM, okay, uses the state resources, and it is well grounded in terms of structures that because they have been in power for a very long time, you may say that the party structures are working, and they have helped a lot of candidates across the country over years to win. But when you look at other parties, for example, now DP has almost been wiped out. There's no more DP. I saw Mao on a lonely...
They have 7 MPs that they have brought back.
Yes.
I think about 7
out
across
of
the country.
How many?
They used to have, I think, were they 15?
Yeah, they were quite a number. They have been cut by more than half. Yeah. So it's a massive blow to DP. FDC has been very much weakened. When you look at the new parties like ANT, it will be a struggle for them to get like 2 or 3 MPs in there. So parties in Uganda I think very few people vote in a side that me, I am a strong, with the exception of those traditional parties, they still have their supporters, UPC, DP, and now the NRM. Now NUP has come in almost to replace FDC, where FDC was, because a lot of that ground has now been covered by that.
Morrison.
But just a moment, Ramadan. You know, in fact, I had earlier, before the election, argued that the NUP had cannibalized FDC and the DP. It turns out NUP has cannibalized more NRM more than these others, because it has whipped NRM out of Buganda. It's 52 members of parliament who have been elected here. You know, it has defeated all NRM ministers in Buganda.
Yes.
It has largely won here. So it has eaten DP, chewed a heavy bite, taken a heavy chunk of beef of NRM, because FDC had 37 members of parliament, now it has 30. But NRM has lost more to NUP than FDC in terms of seats. So I think that what NUP has done is to redraw the political map of Uganda in a fundamental way. If I hope that the people of NUP can see the gain they have made and accept this election as legitimate, because it represents a particular strength to them, rather than join the Besigye approach of disputing the election and therefore not conceding defeat, and because there's so much they have gained. The only thing I can say that in 2006, when FDC was created, it won 15.8% of parliament. These guys have won about maybe 10%.
So far.
So as a percentage, although they have more MPs than FDC at that time, as a percentage of the wider parliament, because now the parliament is 500.
Yeah, over 500.
Yes. So they have won 10%, FDC initially won 15.8. So I get the sense that they have performed so well in a few months they were created. They need to, if I were Bobi Wine, I would consider defeat and go back on the drawing board to build my party. Now that I have a home base, you see, what had weakened Besigye, he lacked an ethnic base. Now Bobi Wine can say, I have my home base, and that is Buganda.
Yeah.
What is my line of attack? It's unlikely that I can grow in the west. He just needs to begin moving in the east and north and west Nile to build NUP. And the only way he can do it...
Will he be allowed to move freely if he's not an MP?
If he's smart, actually he can do it. The problem is that the opposition are so consumed by victimhood that we have been cheated, that they have lost sight of the internal weaknesses which lead to defeat. Let me give you an example. People in the opposition, you say you are being rigged. Please, I beg you, I feel so much sympathy for you. But just one question. In 2006, Besigye won by about 70 to 80% in northern Uganda. So Museveni failed to rig there. Now Museveni is winning by 70% in the north. What is this firewall against Museveni's rigging that the opposition had, which they have lost? Museveni has been not winning in Buganda, let's say, has been rigging you out in Buganda. So which is this new firewall you created that Museveni has failed to break, and therefore he has not rigged?
Who do
Here
you
is
want
the
to
answer.
that question?
Well, I want to answer it for them. The fact that Museveni at one time was losing badly in the north, now he's winning, and previously was winning heavily in Buganda, now he's losing. It shows you that this rigging you talk about is not a powerful influence on election. It may be there, but it is, as the Supreme Court has repeatedly said, it's statistically insignificant. There are certain things that Bobi Wine has done in Buganda, whether out of his ethnicity or whatever it is, that has made him win Buganda. Why has Museveni failed to rig in Buganda and retain his 56% or 65%? Why has he fallen to 20? What is it that Museveni had failed to crack in northern Uganda in terms of rigging? In 2006, he was getting 12% in Ugulu. Besigye was getting 83%, and now Museveni is getting 65% in Ugulu. So that evidence tells you that this rigging is overstated. It is not the reason you lose. Do what you have done in Buganda, go do it in Western Nile, go do it in Acholi, go do it in, whether it requires you to make certain ethnic alliances, whether it requires you to dance better and sing in, not in Uganda, but sing in Acholi, Bobi Wine, do it. In other words, there is opportunity for growth. There is even a huge opportunity for you chasing Museveni out of his home base in Buganda. He has been beaten badly here. All his ministers in cabinet have lost. So the chances of winning are always there. Look at them. Stop always making yourselves victims and saying we have been cheated. No, you are not always cheated. you always lose.
Okay, good. Such a student, Ramadan will tell you, a student who asks the question and then answers.
assuming it was Ngoni.
No, question is asked by professors.
Now,
And
I needed you to comment
This one.
on the issue of the multi-party politics performance going forward. But Gobi made a number of fundamental points, which I wanted also to throw at you, in terms of these things of a party, you know, a party being very strong and then eventually losing out strength. Is it only akin to Uganda?
No, not.
Can't we look at Kenya? Where is KANU? And isn't the government still running a multi-party system? I wanted to challenge you on that.
No, I think first of all, if you look at, for example, Uganda's last parliament, I think the second biggest political party in quotes was the party of the independents, because the independents were more than the FDC. They were more than all the opposition in parliament really combined. And I think the issue of independence, you know, was, I think, first of all, due to the weaknesses in the political parties, their inability to conduct free and fair primaries or credible primary elections. So there was a lot of grievances, and I think across the board, especially for the NRM that holds the universal suffrage kind of primaries. So I think this time around, they were fewer, because I think perhaps the electoral commission at the NRM, you know, performed a bit better. So the issue of individual merit, the issue of independence is still very, very strong in Uganda. But also too, the NRM as a political party has got a grounding in terms of basis, whether it is ideology, whether it's a history. There is something that it gravitates on. The way that the FDC was formed, because at first it was a reform agenda, its business was to reform the NRM, because those who joined FDC first thought that the NRM was getting off the rails. So they had this deeper agenda to say, we are going to reform the NRM, and then they moved on and formed this platform called the Forum for Democratic Change. And they had very serious people like the late Elia Kategaya, serious pedigree, serious people like Amanya Mushega, people like Kazora, very serious people.
Muntu himself.
General Muntu, the Matembes, highly educated, you know, highly credible, very experienced.
Across the country,
they were not in it to just gain a parliamentary seat. They were in it because they had this strong belief. Of course, that later, you know, because of the situations changed. But I think people who founded FDC had a very strong basis. And this is why I still believe that even with the weakness that is going on with Amuriat and General Muntu leaving, FDC, I think, is a party, you know, whose, you know, continuity, or whose ability to really stay longer and be central to Uganda's politics, I think is still very credible. But you see, NUP, when you ask, you NUP guys, what exactly are you about? What is this political party about? I looked at their manifesto and I was like, what's going on here? It was a clear socialist manifesto with no strategies on how to fund their socialist programs. And they never even spoke about their manifesto, apart from saying they are going to pay soldiers and the police 1 million. They never talked about their manifesto. It was about Twebereremu and the entire slogan.
Maybe it would be fair to them.
So
maybe
the wave, that
sorry,
I was trying to talk about Govi's wave. The reason why these guys in DP, as smart, you know, politicians who are trying to survive and get a job in parliament, okay, they were like, wait a minute, looks like this Uganda situation where we are, this pop star has, you know, stimulated imagination and energized, you know, this vote. Let's go in droves, leave DP, some left the FDC. Let's go. Not because they believe in Bobi Wine, not because they believe in NUP, but because they saw an opportunity to enter parliament. And this is what has happened. So for me, I don't see a clear future of NUP, because it has no ideological basis. It has no really strong, you know, strategic ideas in terms of transforming Uganda. They have no clear outlook. Their idea is, we are removing a dictator. That is their slogan. So, you remove a dictator and what?
But you know, Morrison, Morrison,
is
the argument you are making is to assume that NUP is going to be static. In fact, the challenge, what you're presenting as a problem, is the challenge of NUP. For NUP, they need to first.
I'm actually saying they are going to be vanquished because their basis is on sand, and
No.
if this is going to
But that's
continue,
why I disagree with
It's
your
okay.
projection. Why? Your projection is that they are static. Let me put it this way. This is a challenge. The challenge for NUP is, now you have established an ethnic base. Can you hold it? That is one. Two, if you're going to expand outside of Buganda, there is something that you need to sell. Saying Museveni Agende is not a serious basis for you forming a political party and expanding. Now you need to develop some agenda, some ideology, some grounding. What are the values that you stand for? What is the future of you? What is this Uganda of the future that you want to build? So that's the challenge they face. So right now they don't have it. But what you can congratulate NUP about is they have been able in a very short time to build a viable party with a strong base in central Uganda and in urban areas.
Let me conclude
Now
this.
the challenge they have is to do those things you're saying they lack.
I just wanted to conclude the point I was making. That
You don't
you see,
think they can build on those
you
things?
see, when President Museveni is touched in the eye, like
are you not giving them
Just a
any
second.
level, any
When-
amount of optimism
when
that
President,
they are actually going to rebrand?
they are my
in-
friends, they're Bongoyas. I've looked at their documents and I've told them socialists.
I think
they
that
don't
is
have an
over-assuming,
and
because the
I
people
really-
behind them might not be the people who are your friends necessarily only.
No,
There are many people who are planners and strategists there,
and I'm telling
including
you,
some who came from NRM. People like Nambeshe from Bugisu.
Yes, and-
there is this gentleman from Mubende, Kasanda.
I know, but I am telling you that there is another danger for NUP. Is that when Museveni is touched in the eye, just like Besigye touched Museveni in the eye in northern Uganda and conquered it, and Museveni woke up and said, wait a minute, how did Besigye go there and turn northern Uganda against me? He worked methodically and got northern Uganda back. And I can tell you, within 2 years, we are going to be having by-elections maybe, we never know, in central Uganda. Within few years, Buganda is going to get back to the NRM.
Can I?
Because they have picked people like
I have
Hildeman,
not- can I
Sigirinya.
challenge the
They are
three
going to
of
come
you?
to parliament, they don't
The
do
three
anything.
of you, I have not heard, and I needed us to move to talk about what we missed, the shocks in this election. I needed us to start on that. But there is something I want to challenge the three of you. None of you has mentioned the issue of longevity as being one of those, and as being one of those reasons that perhaps could have created, maybe tiredness, can I call it that?
Fatigue.
Or fatigue, for people to say, no, we are tired of this. We brought it up, of course, on top of underlying issues. Who wants to touch on that?
Let me make a quick one then, because you see, that factor is not self-evident in the numbers that we have seen. Because Bobi Wine has not expanded the Chiza Besigye coalition. There is no momentum going forward in terms of cutting into President Museveni and NRM's support. Nationally, you can point out Uganda and some other areas, but nationally, I think the political architecture and map remains the same.
Okay.
Are you talking of longevity of the President Museveni or longevity of even the MPs?
No,
Who have
President
lost?
Museveni.
Programs have been-
Ramadan, Professor,
Because
of the president.
the one of the president is completely complex and defeated if you bring it that way. Because as you saw the map there, the entire Uganda almost is now yellow, with this island here in the center and a small one in the Elgon. So you can't say that this longevity only affected Uganda, and it other areas of Uganda were not considering it as a factor. But I thought you were talking of also the MPs, because
No.
also my vice president lost,
No,
And
no,
also
that one
longevity
we are coming to on MPs.
applies to him. And
we
several
are coming
other-
on that. We are coming to that,
But
Mr. Professor.
at the national level, I don't think
You rule
that
it out
can-
given
you
the
can
map,
bring-
the map color.
Because Bobi used this as a very big factor or issue in this election. But as you can see in different parts of the country,
That idea was not
it
bought.
seems, that they
Okay,
didn't buy
Andrew,
into.
what do you think about
The
it?
people, I think, voted issues.
Well, I think that in any election, there are so many factors
True.
that come to play.
Yeah.
Longevity is one of them. Let's assume Museveni has been there for 40 years, 2026. But the candidate is, let's say, Joseph Kony. You get what I mean? So at any one time, people will vote depending on the the factors that will influence the candidates and the issues they bring. For example, what have we learned from this election? If I was Museveni, I would be happy but also worried. Why would I be happy and worried? Museveni is not going to exceed 6 million votes. Trust me. I'm looking at these numbers. He's not going to exceed 6 million votes. He may get maximum 6.1 out of 18 million registered voters. That is 30%.
But also, Andrew,
33%.
before you finish that point, do we really have 18 million adult Ugandans who are ready to vote?
Yes. Because we have a population
I
right
have-
now.
Are you
I
saying
also
you're not trusting
suspicion
electoral commission
That
figures?
electoral commission could be having a lot of ghost voters
No,
on this register because
actually,
We can challenge that later,
Because
but
look-
now we have to use their figures.
no. Let me give you numbers.
Otherwise, which one do we use?
Have always been low.
Which one do we use?
Let me give you
which turn
numbers.
out-
Let's
And
listen
this
to
one
Andrew.
know
Let's first
that-
listen to Andrew.
Me, I like numbers.
Yes.
According to UBOS, the people who are aged 18 plus are 19.7 million, roughly 20 million.
Yeah.
This is of last year.
Yeah.
So let me assume of those, 90% registered to vote because of this national ID. So you already have above 18 million.
Yeah.
90%.
And they're saying it is
It can't
18.1%.
It
18.1%.
can't happen.
But I actually have 20 million adult Ugandans, 20 million. So if you have 20 million people above the age of 18 and above, 18 plus,
Andrew,
eh?
which statistic is that?
UBOS.
Yubos.
People aged 18
No,
to 40
Yubos,
are
which
40,
one? Yubos is not statistics.
Of
It
which
is,
year, Andrew?
it
2020.
is a source.
The estimates of 2020. 18 to 40 years, 14.046600 million, rather 14 million and 46,600. 18 plus, 19,719,600. Yes, that is it. So 18 to 40 are 71%.
Maybe let's ask Gobi. Why are you doubting it?
Because
but
half
let
of
me come to the number.
more than
Yes,
half,
1 minute, 1 minute. Andrew.
more than half of the population of Uganda is below 15 years. About 52% of the total population is 15 years and below. Those who are between 16 and 17, also not eligible to register for voting, they are 8% of the population. So you are talking over 60% of this population of Uganda doesn't have a chance of registering for voting. And then, when you look at the population itself, by the time we had the census in December 2014,
2014.
we were 35 million,
Yes.
growing at 3%. Demography will show you that by now we should be around 41 million people. Now, when
Last
you
month, is it the other month? They said they projected about 42 million.
no, that is
Is that too far-fetched?
those are political projections. Me, I'm telling you the statistical one, the ones which actually fit in numbers. So you will find that I have a suspicion that that register was inflated.
But Ramadan, I think we should follow you, boss, because you are
Do
economist.
you know
really.
that Yubos is one of the best in
yes.
Africa?
So you boss, I went to you boss. They gave me the number. The number of Ugandans project 18 years plus as of 31st December last year, they were 19,719,600.
Yeah.
So they are able to give that accurate number. So if they say 18 million are registered voters, that means 2 million people are not registered, although they are of adult age.
Yeah.
Now let me come to the issue here. The Museveni is likely to get about 33, maximum 35% of the registered voters. So it means 65% of Ugandans will not have voted for him. What does that mean for the opposition? Because it means there is a large body of people that either are supporters of Museveni who do not find it worth their time to go and vote for him. Maybe they thought he's going to win anyway. But I think the biggest thing is people don't find an alternative. The problem I have with the opposition in Uganda is the opposition in Uganda, the most fanatical, enthusiastic part of it, are convinced that they occupy a high moral ground. That their reasons for removing a dictator, quote unquote, are so self-evident that they occupy such a moral virtue that their support for them is self-evident. I have never seen them say, we need to go and listen to those others who may not agree with us and trying to convince them. If you go to challenge them on social media, they will yell at you and insult you and think either you have been brave with Museveni or you are insane or stupid. Whatever it is they are blind to the feelings of so many potential voters. So I think that if I was Museveni, I would want, assuming a candidate came, or a group of people who can rally this country and either develop an alternative, because Museveni has remained and NRM have remained the very strong on policy. The other side is very strong on emotions and feelings. He is strong on policy. If you say what is the future of Uganda, you can't find it in NUP, even FDC. If you go to NRM, you can find some serious thinking there.
No.
You can look at the NRM manifesto, and you say there is an attempt to think about what the future of Uganda should look like. So, assuming somebody emerged in the opposition and raised voter turnout to 85%, the NRM would face a very serious problem. So I think that this election reflects more the lack of a viable alternative to Museveni rather than strong love for Museveni. That map, that's what it shows us.
Good. Let's go for a break right now. When we come back, we will be, I think we need to, when we come back, one of the things we need to do is to also look at a candidate by candidate and their potential and what they will be doing if, I mean, the 10 that will not go through. But also, we need to look at this collapse of MPs and what type of parliament we are going to have, given the personalities that are being announced around the country. Let's take that break right now into some tally center. We need now to look at some aspects of the results coming from the MPs and to rope it into the presidential elections and how governance will be in the next 5 years. Like yesterday, I like to remind us that fundamentally, in my view, if it wasn't because of Parliament, President Museveni would not have been on ballot yesterday, right? Why? Because it is Parliament that removed, through an amendment, and removed the 75-year cap in order to then allow President Museveni to legally contest this time. So Parliament is very crucial, and from the results that we are now seeing, I think I have to remind again the viewers, the information we are getting is that some of the MPs, the prominent MPs who have been felled are really huge. My friend, the Vice President, Honorable Sekandi, is out. We have people like Honorable Amelia Chambade is out. I don't know, is Nankabirwa confirmed, Ruth Nankabirwa?
She's defeated.
She has been defeated. You can call that.
Saida Bumba, same thing.
Saida Bumba defeated. The chief whip, I must add, is, and she has been very instrumental in, and also maybe let's not forget, do you think that the Toji Kwatako, you know, you remember that campaign, that struggle in Parliament, do you think that it could have also contributed? The reason I am remembering that is because Honorable Ruth Nankabirwa was at the center, at the lead, and was central to mobilizing for President Museveni to ensure that the amendment was carried, and it needed several MPs. So Ruth Nankabirwa has been one of the longest serving MPs in this country. I think from 94 when she came to the CA, she has been in Parliament unstopped and, you know, without any interruption. So that makes it a very long service she has had. And for NUP to come and throw her out, it's another thing to talk about. And of course, Honorable Sekandi as well. I think Honorable Sekandi has also been an MP since that time, since CA. And then, of course, we have a lot of these other people, ministers. My own minister, the minister in charge of UBC here, senior minister, Judith Nabakova from Mityana has also been thrown out. So she remains, I think, one-termer. She has served only one term, and she was a minister of ICT. She is still a minister of ICT. The good news is her colleague from Ngariam, Peter Ogwang, won massively by 16,000 votes, and we congratulate Ogwang. Sorry to Honorable Judith Nabakova, and several others that are coming in. We shall be sharing them as they come in. In Bunyoro, Honorable Dr. Kasirivu lost. Honorable Ernest Kiza lost, who has been Minister for Bunyoro Affairs, and several others. Let me start with Andrew Mwenda. In terms of the politics of our parliament, how do you see it shaping up? 2021, 20.
First of all, I should tell you that remember, it is always, again, I think Rwakagamba or Gobi said this. In Uganda, we have a very high anti-incumbency bias. About 65% of incumbent members of parliament don't get re-elected. So, one, that is not new. The second is that the biggest person who has a challenge is Bobi Wine and his NUP, because they have elected members of parliament. His NUP has the risks which they need to learn how to manage, because they faced FDC as well. So these guys who have gone to parliament, what Bobi Wine is no longer in the parliament, so he's going to be a leader of opposition outside of parliament. So he has to elect the leader of the opposition. Then he has to elect an opposition whip and things like that. Those things will create, whoever he chooses, the others will grumble. Then once they have grumbled, the second stage the members of parliament will go is each one of them will be competing to sit on a powerful oversight committee of parliament, so that when civil servants come, they can be able to extort money from them. So they will
say it nicely, please.
But you know how Ugandan politics works. I always tell Ugandans, in fact,
so that they can influence a lot of things.
Let me tell you this: even if you created the most perfect democracy, in fact, the more perfect our democracy would get, the greater the corruption in this country. Why? Because democracy, the American philosopher Will Durant said there are three forms of government known to man that have been successful: aristocracy, ruled by birth; theocracy, ruled by religion; and democracy, ruled by money. At the heart of any democratic process is money. So these members of parliament, they will have to go back to your constituencies. They have to go with bags of money. To get those bags of money, if you're an opposition member of parliament, you must chair an oversight committee, PAC and others. And they're going to go to NUP. Once they go to NUP, the NUP MPs will have to ally or to work closely with the NRA members of parliament on the same committee. And they have to create alliances with civil servants who must pay them for them to approve their budgets or to approve them to do anything except stubborn civil servants. But so they will enter an eating frenzy. So for anyone Bobi Wine selects, there are others he will not yet have selected. Now he has to learn how to manage power. Those struggles led to the breakup of FDC. There is a risk that these internal struggles of who gets what on these oversight committees can also lead to the breakup of NUP. Second thing, if you look at FDC, one of the things that has greatly weakened FDC is the struggle for power when Besigye left between Muntu and Besigye, but through Besigye's proxies. Then it caused Muntu leaving. The moment Muntu left FDC, I think it discredited the party, that it cannot hold itself together. So if you're Bobi Wine, you must think, how can I hold NUP together? By avoiding these kinds of schisms. And the schisms of NUP, unlike FDC, which was formed with some minimum ideological basis. You remember the people who came from PAFO and the Reform Agenda were grounded in NRM, and there were many mature people in that party. If you look at the profile of the original founders of FDC, it is the who is who in NRM. But NUP is a unique party. It is largely composed of very young, aggressive men, few women, who do not seem to be capable of exercising restraint. I don't see anybody among them to call for caution, exercise restraint, and among them, if these quarrels start, I don't see who can hold things together. Bobi Wine does not strike me as a person with the management experience on how to pull different strands within a political party, Museveni style, and keep them together. We have seen Besigye fail to keep his ship together, so he has been suffering hemorrhage. The Keijukas, the Mushegas, there are so many powerful people, the Maurice Ogengalate, now the Katuntus have left FDC. Practically, FDC is a shell of its former self. So you come to NUP. What skills, with pressure from the government, without Bobi Wine having a financially sustainable job, because they're not going to allow him to continue to be a musician. He is not going to sing. Unless Western donors give him sufficient funds, he will be a person who is not working, At the same time, he runs a party of young people who are impatient and energetic. At the same time, they want to make money.
Under the law, the parties that are under IPOD are supposed to be funded as with the taxpayers' money. There is a law to support that. And I think it is based on numerical strength of so they will have some money.
And that is, if Bobi Wine touches that money, his own accountability issues will begin. So he has to know how to handle that money in a manner that is transparent. Remember, his enemies are looking at him. You have been criticizing Museveni for corruption. Now, what are you using this government money for? Remember that President Museveni has promised that the government of Uganda will fund IPOD 100% and get out the donors.
Yeah.
And even if the donors are still there, issues of accountability are going to come. So he's going to face a serious challenge. The test of his leadership is on two levels: how he handles matters of accountability of money, and two, how he holds the different strands of NUP together. Because right now, the young people who created NUP with him and people power are very envious and jealous of the old guards, the Segonas and the Sabagalas and others who joined later and now are taking senior positions in the party. So even that conflict, you will have to manage it. Best failed to manage it. That's why originally the Kategayas and others left the FDC, and the Reagan Okumus and the Morris Oginga Latigos kept the party and the Odongo Tos and the Kanyas. Those are the guys who became pillars of FDC, because the actual elders of NRM, when they came there, they found these guys had a thing called Reform Agenda, which was the foundation of FDC. So the guys who came from PAFO were never given much chance. Many of them looked around and realized they had no space, they left. So NUP is going to face the same situation, and it requires extraordinary leadership ability for Bobi Wine to hold that ship of his together.
Good, thanks Mwenda. Gobi, before I bring you on, just another reminder, another minister who has lost, or maybe more ministers, Rukutana Mwesigwa from Rushenyi County, confirmed lost to Naomi. And it should be said, of course, that Naomi is independent, and Rukutana had defeated her in the primary elections in that constituency. And you remember that constituency, which was marred by violence, and Rukutana...
It flipped like 3 times.
There it is. Rushenyi County has gone to an independent, and Rukutana is out, at least to rest. Another long-serving, I think from, is it 201? Long-serving MP of the NRM. But that is an in-house thing.
I think, Charles, the voters of Uganda have helped President Museveni to do a reshuffle, a natural one. Because I don't know what else he has to do going forward in terms of his cabinet, because I think by the count of the senior members in the cabinet who have lost, you see almost 2/3 of the cabinet gone. Very unfortunate, but a reality. But now on a serious matter, there are things we need to ask ourselves and answer. Why? Why are these people, especially when you brought in the point of Tojikwata, that could it be the reason why most of the people in Central here, most of the MPs and the ministers lost? I don't think so. Why? My thinking is that Bobi Wine was more effective, and his party here, in sending out a message of taking the umbrella, whatever it is. And these younger people ticked the umbrella. Because even here in Kampala, those people who fought, even on the floor of parliament, to ensure that the age limit is not lifted, that clause, they have been voted out. Many of them. Mugatu Gwabata is out. Much in the east, the MP is out. Nakawa, this man of FDC, the Honorable Kabaziguruka is out. Katolu Bwame is out. Kasivante is out. Latif is out. So what explains that? It's just that those who had the umbrella were the ones receiving the ticks. And throughout this region where NUP performed so well, you find that that was a common trend. So to me, I think right from Busoga area there where some pockets of Busoga up to the Masaka city and the surrounding areas, Renga and so on, the Noop wind, is it a wave? The wave blew in such a direction, and unfortunately, whether you were who or who, as long as you didn't have the umbrella, you left the stage.
Okay. Mr. Rokakamba, your impressions of this?
Well,
you can as well comment on Dr. Elioda. He's out, if you like. He tried to come back as an independent.
Yeah,
He had been defeated in primaries.
You know,
another minister.
You know, there was that new constituency that he went to, and things happened. Some other interesting candidates showed up. And, it became a problem for him. But on the issue of really attrition rate of members of parliament, I think it is also a problem of the civic consciousness of Uganda's, I think, body politic in terms of understanding the roles of a member of parliament. How do voters, you know, really understand or perceive in real terms what are the roles of a member of parliament? Because a member of parliament is supposed to, one, legislate, represent, you know, do the budgeting, and do the good work of oversight, making sure that civil servants and other people don't steal public money, and making sure that all the projects are implemented. It is really not the business of a member of parliament to be, you know, attending burials, you know, building churches, you know, doing the things that really I think our communities have, you know, believe it's the role of member of parliament. And for these members of parliament also try to survive, even those who compete against them, to have a chance, they must do those kind of things. So you have this political culture really based on absence of understanding in terms of the terms of reference, job terms of reference for a member of parliament, that continues to be a problem. And I think that has built really negative and reverse expectations. One of the reasons why I think ministers are losing is because when they see them, you know, with you know, these huge guzzlers, you know, V8 cars, and then, you know, sweep cars in front and the other one is sweeping the back. The expectation are these people should be building health centers, they should be, you know, roofing all the churches and, you know, tarmacking all the community access roads. So if you're a minister and you don't do that, and this guy who's campaigning against you is also saying, by the way, this minister is supposed to be, this person is a minister for trade. Why is it that you don't have market for all your products, you know, in this constituency? So
but even the ones who built health centers this time have been shown the exit.
By the way, not necessarily, but I'm saying the expectation, because of lack of understanding of really the role of a member of parliament. I come from Rubabo constituency, where Kagonyera, Professor Mondo Kagonyera, very articulate and very intelligent man, you know, lost elections. He would come there and say, for me as a member of parliament, I will go there and argue for you policies, national level, do ABCD, represent you, making sure that the money allocated to you arrives, and do this, but I will not touch my pocket to start giving you handouts. And said, actually, I am an opportunity for you. Do you know what happened? He said, Professor, he said, they voted him out. But people who came distributing envelopes, who are not even, you know, speaking very serious things, they were voted. So there is that.
Yes, but me, I have always had a problem with that argument. Because I always ask myself, what should be the role of the member of parliament? Is it the role that is written in a textbook on the basis of how it evolved in Britain and Europe? Or should the role of a member of parliament reflect the aspirations of the people of Uganda? And that's the conflict in Uganda.
And their challenges.
Yes. Because every day, the people of Uganda think that their member of parliament should attend funerals and weddings, should preside over functions of building churches and clinics and schools. They see the member of parliament performing an executive function. But the law of Uganda, or the rules of Uganda inherited from our colonial experience, present a different role of parliament. So whom should we go with?
But you
the
see,
theory the theory or the expectations of the
Andrew, you are wrong on both.
Let me just finish.
You are wrong on both.
Let me just finish, Morrison.
Okay.
Because, you know, I have a friend, Professor Jeremy Winston at Stanford University. They used to do a study here called a parliamentary scorecard. They looked at how much you contribute to legislation and all these kinds of things. I said, okay, this is based on the theory of what parliament should do. Why don't you pick interest in, let us poll Ugandans and ask, what do you want from your member of parliament? Given a choice between legislation and these other roles, what do the people of Uganda vote for? Because if you say people are sovereign, power belongs to the people and people are the ones to decide. But then you have a theory of the function of parliament inconsistent with the people's wishes. How do you reconcile those two things?
I actually think Andrew is over-theorizing. Why do I say so? Because you see, there is a concept called leadership. When you are elected in a position of leadership, you are actually expected to listen to your constituencies, but also tell them the truth, but also lead them to the ideals of how this situation should happen. Because an MP is not the only leader in a constituency. There is an LC3, which is the gate for service delivery. There is LC1, there are LC5s. In my district, there was even a conflict where a member of parliament would go to Bari, and then there is LC5, there is LC3. They all want to give speeches. They are like, this member of parliament is actually dismembering us from the audience where we should be getting the respect.
Also, I think, Morrison, it is you being theoretical.
No, the issue of leadership. If you are leading, why don't you tell the people the truth?
Well,
I think that's very
Morrison,
important. Finally, I think the only candidate who would have changed the structure of politics, even in terms of manifesto in Uganda, is Beth Kamia's Federal Alliance. That was very clear on federating this country, taking, certain executive powers, in terms of decision making, resource allocation, and everything else, to the grassroots, where people will really be in charge of their own governance. The manifestos of all these other groups have been, the same to a larger extent. The only promise by FDC and other parties is that they would execute a bit better. But if we strengthen, for example, local government, move it from what I think is current Bianswa, because districts, I agree with those who call them NGOs, like, if we have districts, working, just like I think in Kenya, some of those majimbos and provinces are working, I think there could be a difference. And then the MPs and whoever they are senators could focus on national related aspects.
Okay, so I want to come to you about you saying, I think you're being really theoretical. Because you see, you can say, I'm going to exercise leadership. Me and you are competing. For you can exercise your leadership, Kagonyera style. This is what I'm supposed to do. Me, I will come. No. I'm using your own example. Just hold a second. I'm using your own example. Kagonyera trying to exercise leadership. What befell him in Rubabo, in your home village? He lost. Exactly.
So the problem is
what is the lesson? What is the lesson for the next politician? Don't be like Kagonyera. Don't exercise leadership. You see, democracy pulls you from the pedestal to the ground.
The reality.
And you can, the room for exercising leadership is really limited because you always have an opponent who is not going to respect those rules, who is not going to exercise that leadership. You see, for me, I think that we need to think of how do you restructure the institutional architecture of a present society like ours with its own attitudes, so that a member of parliament, because let me tell you, you got constituencies, people look more to the MP than LC5 chairman. Even though the MP has no budget, the LC5 chairman has a budget. Either you have to do mass sensitization, maybe for people to learn. If you cannot have people learn that it's not the LC5, it's not the MP, but the LC5, who has your money to do A, B, C, D, F, G, you cannot get out of this, because politicians are inherently power maximizing entrepreneurs who will look for the quickest way, whether it's a lie or whatever it is, in order to get elected. So Kagonyera was being theoretical, or maybe not theoretical, he was being honorable. But politicians are not honorable, even though they have the title.
But we are looking for honest politicians. so Andrew is talking pragmatism that is actually fraud.
Can you reconcile these two? The realists
And the theorist.
and the theorist.
No,
And the theorist
think I
and call the realist theorist.
No, me, I'm a pragmatist. I try to combine both.
Actually, let me tell you, both
You are
of
a
them,
theoretical
Both of them
pragmatist.
are right.
both of them
Pragmatic theorist.
are wrong.
Both of them are wrong.
That's a good reconciliation.
Both of them failed to answer your question. There are these ministers and other incumbent MPs who have lost their seats. Why did they lose? Was it because they were not legislating? Was it because they were not providing the goodies and other things? Either way you look at it, this election was not about issues.
Generally.
Generally.
That's
This was an election about emotions, and that kind of enthusiasm which was brought by this superstar called Honorable Kyagulanyi, who made it very difficult for either a very successful legislator or a very unsuccessful legislator. I will give you an example. The Vice President has one of the model constituencies in terms of service delivery. That Chanamukaka of his.
Yeah.
When you go there, the entire constituency is full of agro-produce and agribusiness. He has built factories to process this. He actually came to get the last one on pineapples and coffee and so on. And he has turned that. When you go there, you see very successful farmers. He has been defeated. He's vice president of Uganda. You know that he is capable of lobbying for them more to bring it home. The person whom they
Almost
voted,
a similar thing with the Minister for Agriculture as well, from Kalungu.
yes, same picture.
Yeah.
Similar to Honorable Chambade. I don't know many senior ministers who are so much in love with their constituents.
True. That I agree.
Than Chambade.
I agree.
My minister
I agree.
at Trade and Industry. When you look at the people who are replacing them, it was not necessarily about their legislative capacity or that they have capacity to gun lobby. But these are people who said, we are taking an umbrella this time. And also, we are chasing away dictator. So we want new blood to help our new president to deliver the new Uganda. So they ticked all of them out. Regrets will be there in the future by the constituents, I'm sure, who ticked them that way. Because now that the incumbent is still in power, and now these legislators are going to join the Kampala Wakiso mode of legislation, just go to the opposite side of the aisle in the parliament and, chunk out more slogans. But they don't mind. They don't mind. They are saying, this time around, we are just taking the umbrella. So I don't think we should be here going into these issues of what a legislator should be. And so it doesn't answer the fundamental question of why all of the credible MPs and ministers have been voted out this time around.
But could it also be that when you're an MP or a minister, the expectations are so high? It's not that those things don't matter. It is simply that people have exaggerated expectations of what you're capable of delivering, and they vote you out of that unfairness. Because oftentimes, let me give an example of Adolf Mwesige. He's the current Minister of Defense. In NRM
Has
primaries, no, he didn't
He
even
lost
run.
in the primary.
In the primaries, he got, I think, 25% or something to a
He lost in
very,
the primary, I recall.
just an ordinary boy who emerged from nowhere.
Democracy.
You see. So, I think that the Ugandan voter expects so much out of the incumbent. If you're not an incumbent MP, the chances of winning are very high because you have not had a chance at the trough. When you've been an MP, the expectations are equally very high. And therefore, people demand an arm and a leg. But even when you look at Ugandans, when you look at public debate, the expectations of a healthcare system of Uganda is the one of UK or Belgium or the United States. But Uganda's total population, total budget divided by the population in this last budget is about $200. The United States is about $22,000. But Ugandans expect that their government should provide them public goods and services to the quantity and quality of America. In other words, Kiamlesire or Mukasa should provide for his children to the tune to how Sudhir also provides his children. It just doesn't make sense to me. There are certain things, even if public servants in Uganda decided to starve to death because they earn little money to sustain themselves and are not corrupt at all, this country cannot provide a large basket of goods and services, public goods and services, to the quantity and quality we demand and desire. It just cannot. It's just a poor country. So you need to expect the next so many generations for Uganda's revenue per capita, or rather Uganda's public expenditure per capita, to grow and reach about $2,000 for certain services to be available. So the same thing applies to members of parliament. They're under so much pressure as ministers because people expect an arm and a leg out of them.
Do you know, there's one quick one. Because I think also our leaders, especially members of parliament, do not exercise real leadership. Because they don't give back the work. Because even when the constituents are demanding so much, okay, they accept it, they pretend they're actually going to deliver it, and they don't even tell their constituencies that they also have responsibility, to do certain things, for themselves. Yeah. And I think really the combination of that is the crisis that we are in. Even when you're talking about these rights that our citizens were supposed to enjoy, it is like we don't have a responsibility across the board. And leaders have fed this animal, this elephant, that we can supply, to our government, to Yambe, and that is the crisis that we are in.
And I think the dilemma that Mwenda is talking about, Morrison, is that when you go into politics, what is your first drive? To win majorly. You want to win. You want to win in order to get to a position where you can provide service. But then the process that you have to go through to win, that gate that you have to pass, demands that there are certain things you have to do, including not telling them that fact. Instead, you should actually provide. And that is the difficulty that these people are facing. But even when you provide, like in the case, I have followed the case of Minister Sempija. I have, because he wanted me to go to his model farm and see the coffee and all that, which has been serving a lot of people. See, and then Honorable Amelia, gave me a book on which she documented what she is doing for the people. It's amazing.
There are some things, Professor.
Yeah? Your minister you talked about, ICT.
Yeah. There are some ICT.
What has happened here, perhaps to give a bit of an explainer, is that, they say that the heart is sometimes much stronger than the mind. So matters of that tickle the heart more, that tickle the emotions, things like religion, things like tribe, things that are not about really rational and social services, okay, it kind of take away the mind of people and they move in a certain way. They don't even ask questions. They are listening to each other. They are being driven not by rational leadership related aspects of social services. So when it's really a tribe, that's different. Okay. People will move in a certain way that is irrational, that is emotive, and I think that that can explain why people like His Excellency Sekandi or Amelia Chambade have lost.
And you are right, partly because this election, most of the voters, especially of Nup, were very angry, and out of that emotion of anger, they lost the reasonable decision-making trade, and they were just saying we are just going to vote.
Okay. I need us now. We have 11 candidates. What we are going to do, I needed us to look at those individual, their individual dynamics, and then you make a comment on especially projecting what will be their future. But before we go into that, there are questions and comments that have come. Let me see if we can answer some of them. Someone is asking, what are the statistics in Katakwi with especially Honorable J.J. Odong, Alupo Jeska, Ogwang, and Echweru. None have, I haven't seen any of their results. Kindly update. That commentator, what I can respond to is that Alupo Jeska has bounced back. She has defeated the Violet, I think. She's called Violet Akurut, I think Akurut. So Alupo Jeska has bounced back. I haven't got the update for Echweru. Maybe my technical team in the back room should get for me with J.J. Odong. But Honorable Ogwang as well is back, the state minister for ICT. He defeated his opponent whom he had defeated in the primary elections but came back. So the opponent got 1,900 and Ogwang got 16,000.
So him twice, 2 months.
So that was a massive victory there for Honorable Ogwang. Then Ismail Ladu, thanks for watching. Ismail says, I believe Noop Challenge has officially started. So Rwakakamba and Andrew and Bobi, someone is agreeing with you. Ismail Ladu is a journalist as well. He works with Monitor, Daily Monitor, the Nation Media. He says, I believe Noop Challenge has officially started. The good news is that they can learn from the FDC, although that is easier said than done. Rwakakamba, someone is agreeing with you there. Someone here called Willie is saying, Charles, I need a comment from any of those panelists. Would you say that Dr. Besige's political candor has just burnt out? Andrew, I'm giving that to you. Morrison is a homeboy. He might treat him on the extremes, either harshly or
and me, I'm not
or just nibble at.
I have always treated the
Andrew is the natural.
A realistic
but
answer.
just a minute, he says, can he rediscover or rebrand himself? Very important question. Andrew, what do you think is going to be the role of Besige in these things going on, 2021, 2026?
Well, I think that anything is possible. Besige can easily sink himself into oblivion, or he can remake himself. It really depends on how the different players, both in the government and the opposition, play their cards. What President Museveni will do, what Noop will do, what Amriat will do, a combination of factors. So remember that the future is always indeterminate. We have many alternative futures right now. And any future we get, whether Besige can be successfully rebranded or rebrand himself, will depend on how each player plays their cards.
That's the reason why
But I think
not many of you who are analysts, so you are one of them to do that, to carry that heavy load.
Perhaps the right question would be, what would Besige need to do? And what needs to happen? Let me give an example. Assuming Bobi Wine and his people quarrel in the parliament and begin disintegrating, squabbling among themselves. Let me also assume that President Museveni commits a very big mistake, which is rarely capable of doing, because he's a very careful person and exercises a lot of strategic patience. An opening for Besige can emerge to regain not the leadership of FDC, but to be a presidential candidate in 2026. So,
how old will he be? By then, like 67?
How old is Besige? I was born in
I think
1956.
64.
He was born in 56. So
56, that is about 60, 64, 65.
so
About 60, so
he
it will be like 69.
Yes. So at 69, he can bounce back bigly, as Trump would say, and participate. The problem Besige has is he locked himself in two difficult pockets. I don't know how he'll walk out of them. One, to retain the mass enthusiasm of his base, he has had to adopt extremely radical policies of calling the Museveni administration a junta, of taking and compromising positions which alienate him from so many other people who would want a much more moderate stance. You can clearly see Bobi Wine, whom I think is naturally a moderate person, like Besige was, to keep that base of his. He has also been adopting extreme positions of removing a dictator. I think that those messages do not resonate with many Ugandans, which is reflected in this low voter turnout. So, Besigye and Bobi Wine have become hostages of the radical extremist base. They are able to hold that base and drive up its enthusiasm, but they lack a growth strategy.
Okay.
And if you are Bobi Wine needs to develop a growth strategy. Even Besigye, how do you grow? Yes, there are grievances you have, and you have a large community of people who are passionately attached to those grievances, and they see you as the spokesperson of the grievance. The question is, how many are they, and can they allow you to win?
Okay.
And they need to take a lesson from Museveni. Museveni was a left-wing radical in 1980. When he went to the bush, he understood that to win power, you need to first win over the core institutions through which a society expresses itself. Those are social institutions that are very powerful. He allied with the royal families of Ankole,
Buganda.
Toro, and Buganda, especially Buganda. That was one. So you have traditional institutions. Two, he allied himself to the Catholic Church, which had a national infrastructure, and he could move around Uganda sleeping in priest houses. So the Catholic Church could provide him strong political support. Three, he allied himself with the Uganda business community. Now, realize that all those three institutions are very conservative, right-wing institutions, and he's a leftist. From the very beginning, therefore, Museveni could only succeed in his struggle and in his politics by moderating his positions, not by being that radical person that he was. Besigye has always lacked those ideological pillars of restraint. NUP is the worst version of Besigye because, I'll give you an example. Within FDC, if something happened, there are individuals, not social institutions, but there are individuals like Ruzindana, there are individuals like Katuntu, Morso Gengalatigo, previously Sam Munjuba, Jacques Saviti. There are many elders or people experienced who could put in a word and call for caution, exercise restraint. You get it? And Besigye could be controlled that way. When you look at NUP, who are these individual pillars of restraint? First of all, it lacks those institutions that can act as pillars of restraint on how NUP exercises its politics. But two, they are not even elderly, experienced individuals and what we would call old hands to drive Bobi Wine towards a much more mature position. So the risk of him becoming even more hostage to his base, and this is his Secretary General, David Lewis Rubongoya.
The lawyer.
That is bad company.
Why is it bad company?
I think that David, who is a very smart guy, brings too much emotion into politics. Just watch Museveni, by the way. Museveni has one great quality, the ability to withdraw his feelings from a subject. You can slight Museveni, insult him, do anything, and then he would say, but what is this man's political value? He will focus on what he gains politically and ignore what injures him emotionally. I don't think Rubongoya is capable of something like that. I don't think Bobi Wine is capable of that. Museveni's ability to reach out to those who disagree with him. I made my career in 1997 when I became a journalist, or 96 up to now. I would write an article criticizing him. He would call me on the phone. I'll go to State House breakfast, have breakfast with him or lunch. But there is something about him that at no one time does he rule anybody out.
Even Bobi Wine is going to invite you.
No, but I see. But when you look, Museveni isn't he? Hasn't he? He brought back to Mukunde. He brought back Tinyefuza. They may have fallen out again. I think he's going back Mama Mbabazi. He brought in Bet Kamya. I cannot mention how many politicians, Omar Atubo, that Museveni has always looked up to the other side to try to find some minimum accommodation. The Cecilia Ogwals. So there is something in him.
By the way, Cecilia Ogwal has won again massively.
Yes. Let me give you another example. Museveni was one of the guys who removed Yusuf Lule. He supported the removal of Yusuf Lule. He's the one who, with Mukombe Bambara, who came to pick Benaisa to go and announce him that he's president.
In Entebbe.
Yes, but immediately he went to the bush.
The Kabari guy.
Immediately, but Museveni went to the bush. The first person he formed an alliance with and formed NRM is Yusuf Lule. That permanent, looking at the things not in black and white, but looking at so many gray areas, because Uganda is a very diverse society. And I think it is something in Museveni's mind that you can never build a majority in Uganda because we don't have a majority in the form of an ethnic group. So the only way you can build a majority is build coalitions.
Okay.
Whether they're ethnic, ideological or religious, you must always build coalitions. And therefore, see, 1 second, let me finish. Pursuing ideological purity, which I think is what NUP and FDC follow, defiance and people power. They seek ideological purity. You must be such a committed cadre. You must show that you are so hostile to Museveni to the extreme and so fanatical to NUP for you to be a genuine member of NUP. Anything less than that, you are a mole. But then you're starting internal divisions already. So where they should be building alliances and coalitions, they're always trying to achieve ideological purity at a very high cost to themselves.
Good. Another question is from someone called Enoch. He says, Charles, Enoch here. And I want Bobi to respond to some of the issues here. Don't forget issues to deal with: heavy-handed arm of government, the army and the internet blackout. Another, what is to make of lack of acceptance of results by NUP? Do you want to make a comment on any of those?
The acceptance or lack of it. You know, NUP needs to realize what psychologists call motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning is when people form and cling to some false beliefs despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary. I think NUP built a campaign which didn't leave any gap for a loss by Bobi Wine. They really felt that Bobi was going to win the election. So much as we are saying actually that they have achieved a lot by sweeping, for example, NRM and these other parties out of Uganda, they are really sick. They are sick to the marrow that Bobi Wine didn't win. But the reality is, Bobi Wine
The
was
tally
a
is still
very
being
strong.
done. How sure are you? Can you really
No,
give
no,
me
no, no,
room
no.
for the
You
tally?
can see the trends, you know.
It's clear.
If you are 60
You
plus,
say may not win.
60 plus, and this is at 65% of the tally, it's almost clear that NUP president is not likely to win
Okay, good.
unless he wins the remaining 25% or so of the votes cast, which is not very, very likely.
He wins 100% or 25%.
Absolutely. So I think the NUP guys are trying to buttress the motivated reasoning by bringing in also what we call a selective perception in behavior economics. And you know, with the selective perception, you have a tendency not to notice anything that contradicts what your beliefs are. And I would want to really to call upon my good friends in NUP that this has been a very good campaign, and amidst all the circumstances through which they had to do it, because definitely the security forces were very high-handed on them, and they gave them a very good excuse to be so. Why? They completely ignored the Electoral Commission guidelines to run a campaign in the midst of this pandemic, such that the voters or the supporters do not actually be put on a high risk of, contracting the disease.
Okay.
And Bobi was actually, with maybe a bit of Amriat, but Bobi had more rallies, engagement with the crowds than any other candidate. And he did it against the guidelines. He succeeded in galvanizing a very, excited campaign around him. He's the only, I think, candidate who was posting crowds, the politics of crowds, as if we're in the normal campaign.
Okay.
So I would think that they thought he was going to win. I know a lot of my younger friends who actually never had any gap in their head that this was an impossibility thesis they were painting. Now the reality is that map, as you have seen it, is yellow, with the exception of this lower part, which is red. And to me, congratulations to NUP for having emerged as the main opposition kind of party in parliament. They should use this as a building block going forward, because the time is on the side of Bobi Wine. He's a young guy. I know, 1 week in politics is a long time. Many things can change.
I know what you're talking about.
In a few years to come. But I would really want to say that the bit of internet switch off. Again, it's another thing which is similar to the one of the high-handedness of security. Uganda has never, I think, had a voting day as peaceful as the one we had yesterday. The entire country was reported by the mainstream media and the people on the polling stations. And interestingly, these were mainly interviewed as NUP supporters, coming out and say, I would say we have had a fantastic day voting. Here there is no excuse. We have voted under peace. Why did we have this peace? I really feel that this the social media was doing a wonderful job in interfering with the election in Uganda and elsewhere, actually. Actually, when they switched off, like I said here yesterday, the social media, and it became a global news item, most of the responses I saw from different countries before they switched us off completely to see some of them. The people in America, the people in UK and so on were saying, oh, Uganda is a fantastic country and this administration is very wise. This social media has allocated itself, the social media platforms and providers, a lot of power to decide on who should be allowed to influence an election and who shouldn't. Particularly Trump, whose supporters were very angry with Facebook and Twitter when they switched off their man. And I would feel that, therefore, by allowing social media to get off, and like I said yesterday, it's even natural that, and interesting that the people who are so outraged by this internet shutdown and social media, therefore, themselves get quite outraged by some of their followers, and they usually block them. When you see a follower who is irritating you, and you block him or her. And a number of those guys have blocked me. I've blocked some people. I think he has blocked some.
I haven't, actually.
This one actually tweets that blocking these guys is very interesting. I've been blocking every day. Now, what the government of Uganda did, it blocked all of us from irritating an average voter.
Okay.
And also spreading around false news and hate campaign and all of those other. By now, we would be having announcements how somebody has won when he hasn't, and so on and so forth. So I think it is quite unfortunate that we didn't have the chance to share our experiences as the voting was going on, and now we would be sharing some of these views. I'm sure we are at advantage for us who are speaking here on TV, to the disadvantage of others who would want to be like us, and they are not having their phones working. But bottom line, the security, sometimes when I'm not teaching students at MUBS, I'm teaching generals at Senior Command and Staff College, Chimaka. You need sometimes to gauge the kind of risk you are facing as a security officer, to ensure, because bottom line, you need security in a country and stability and tranquility, whatever. Now, you need to ask yourself, was social media going to facilitate that stability, that security, that tranquility, so that people can carry out their voting exercise, or it would have been the opposite of what we are seeing now.
Thanks, Gobi. Roka Kamba, I know you have overweighted on top of what you have.
And he was itching.
He was itching to respond to you, but you see, teachers, we always try to give them space. Patrick says, the panel should not underscore the direct contribution of the church. Andrew Mwenda touched on the church. The Patrick person says, the various videos on social media directly spoke to people's hearts, and this is a sect of people that is highly believed by their followers. He's not mentioning any. Most of them flipped the nope vote. Do you agree? What's your comment on that? And then you make a comment on in 2 minutes. Okay. We need to respond. There are many, many questions. People are asking you, and the three of you, so I will give you more so that you can respond to them.
Yeah, I share a different view from what my brother Bobi when it comes to the social media. Because whereas I do believe that national security supersedes any other aspects in terms of whether how much losses people who use internet, you know, from economic, social and other aspects have lost, the issue of national security is definitely central, because without it, it's the umbrella under which other aspects of life do operate. That one I understand. But I think the balance of risk, in my view, was rushed, and I think not clearly explained. Because if we were to learn from President Museveni, why, when he announced the COVID lockdown, the great COVID lockdown, why Ugandans understood him, and why Ugandans really said, Mr. President, you have done the best thing to save us from this coronavirus, is that for every measure that he put across, like any military leader, he explained in detail for every decision or every constraint that he took, you know, for that lockdown, COVID lockdown that we had. He would say, I have closed the bars because of ABCD. I have closed these cohorts, and he would explain. And Ugandan said, Mr. President, thank you very much. But the internet lockdown, the great cyber shutdown that blanketed everything from Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp, Instagram, and everything, even internet, even Google. Because, you know, even doctors these days, when they are prescribing medicine, you see they Google to get the latest. So I think there should have been a very, very proper explainer to the country in terms to explain this is the reason. You can say they are covert of, you know, these other reasons of security that they cannot say them. But there should have been, I think, a clear explainer to the country to say this is the reason we are blanketing, we are locking down, you know, this other aspect of life. Because internet is infrastructure and it is part of life. Secondly, how do you do it? For example, my view is that they should have focused on ringleaders if they thought that, if security thought that there was going to be an insurrection, there was going to be riots, people with so many followers are going to be sharing ABCD. They should have focused on ringleaders, on spiritual leaders, on operational leaders.
In times of crisis, yes. Do you have time for that? That's the challenge. In times
of crisis, you stop the bleeding. But how do you begin by stopping the bleeding. How do you stop the bleeding? You focus on ringleaders, operational leaders, those, and you deplatform them. You isolate them, and you make sure that you take away the megaphone, just like Twitter took away the megaphone from Trump, such that he doesn't cause a crisis. But to blanket the country and punish the innocents who are going about their business, who want to enjoy the election, who want to enjoy the economy without explanation, I think it was not both at a strategic and tactical level. I think it was problematic. They should have done it in a different way.
Okay.
Secondly, to follow up on what my colleagues have been saying in terms of, you know, how is NUP going after this loss, because, you know, they have worked very hard, but they are not, you know, they have had some members of parliament, the NUP and other people, but the presidency is in the hands of the NRM. So if you are Kyagulanyi, what do you do? I think the best thing is to get on the balcony, first of all, leave the dance floor, because the dance floor is that echo chamber, and reflect and see what went wrong, how do I move forward, how do I deliver the party growth. And I want to agree with what Professor Bobi was saying, because I have that experience. In 2001, in Makerere University, I was one of the leaders of Reform Agenda, very, very active. And I remember leading a trail of buses around the country up to Kanungu. We were really radicalized at that time.
To rig elections.
And no, I was a member of the Reform Agenda. We thought we were removing Museveni at that time. And I can tell you.
What did you call him at that time?
Well, I can.
The new people have called him a dictator.
Yes, and
we are removing a dictator.
Because I believed that there is no way President Museveni was going to win. I knew that Besigye was going to win that election by 90%, and all my friends, because we did not have networks.
Did he call you to a discussion?
No, we did not even have networks. We did not have networks beyond that Reform Agenda bubble. We were listening to our own echo chamber. And tell me that young man at that time that Besigye was going to lose that election, I would not believe you. And I can tell you that's, I have also been speaking to the NOP, supporters. Most of them are young people. They have that belief that within that echo chamber, the professor used some words of motivated, you call it motivated something.
Motivated reasoning.
They do not have, any thinking beyond, that Bobi Wine is going to lose this election. And I can tell you, they are going to be frustrated. If he calls them on the street, they will come on the street, because for them, they 100% believe. If Besigye had called us on the street, and even people are shooting, I can tell you in 2001, we were willing to walk on the streets, even with guns blazing. I can tell you, because we are convinced that we are removing President Museveni. And that's the same situation. So to my friends, really young people in NUP, I know stomaching a loss is a process, healing is a process. I think there are those levels of acceptance. It takes time. But the young people should look at this as a starting point. They have made some wins. Let them focus on building the party. 2026 is not far away. Let them build, and we are all Ugandans after elections. We should hold hands, sing Kumbaya, and take this country forward.
Coincidentally, another message here from Bugiri. Geoffrey in Bugiri is also for you, Rwakakamba, that while Rwakakamba was appearing on another TV today, he said that Kyagulanyi will not reach 30%. What can he say now?
They asked me, by the way, that you grade, you give an estimation of where this is going to end. I said President Museveni is going to score 60% and above. I said Kyagulanyi is going to be in the ballpark of 30% and below. Now, I think this is 30.64. It's not even 31%. And perhaps, still in my view, by the time this ends, it's very possible that I will be right.
Okay. I agree with Mwenda that absence of Besigye made so many FDC supporters stay away. We are a society that worship cult leaders. Museveni, Bobi, and Besigye all occupy that status in Ugandan politics. We should all recall what Bobi Wine did to Besigye in Arua when they actually disrupted his rally during the campaigning for Honorable Kasiano. That is Mr. Rugendo saying, is watching and agreeing with Mwenda. Then I don't think you need to respond to that. You don't need to respond to that. He's just agreeing with you. This one is too long a message. I can't read it. Then there is a message from Ken. Ken Lukwago says, why are your panelists suggesting that NUP victories were based on anger as the key driving factor? How about the focus on how these leaders who lost represented the views of the people in parliament instead of tokenism? Don't they think those ministers lost for failing to stand firm on issues like Toji Kwatako? That's another comment. I don't think I think you have made your comments on that.
Yeah.
Then there is someone from Amolatar. He says, Charles, how about the fact that I'm surprised that NUP actually won in some parts of northern Uganda, like Choga, North, Amolatar, that were initially NRM stronghold. That's someone sending from Amolatar. And then someone called Joshua says, I think this Joshua person is bringing us to where I wanted us to go. I had intended that you pick three candidates of your choice and you make a comment on their performance, whether you are surprised, and what you think about them going forward. The other two that are leading, we shall make comments about them tomorrow. How about that? So this person is saying, I'm Joshua, I need an analysis on the character of Honorable Mugisha Muntu in relation to the opposition candidates. Who wants to take that? Mwenda, you should take up that. And then two other candidates of your choice, randomly. And then the rest will.
Well, I think that Muntu is a very big puzzle for me because he's a very noble character. But I think his style and demeanor does not attract the mainstream Ugandan voter. In fact, I think I'm now inclined to believe that his exit from FDC was a big mistake because it significantly diminished his appeal. That's why he has only 0.6% of the vote, and not very different from Katumba. So you can imagine. I don't know if he had remained in FDC, he would not have succeeded to be its presidential candidate because Besigye could not agree with him. But he would have perhaps remained. His exit weakened DP FDC significantly. That's why FDC is in disarray as it is. The split between Muntu and Besigye was hemorrhaged FDC's moral standing. Because if you are a party fighting for democracy and internally you cannot even agree, and this the disagreement is between some of the best that you have, it led to people like Katuntu, Ronald Reagan, Okumu, Moroso Gengala, Tigo, Odongo, all these other leaders of FDC walked away and have been running as independents. The second candidate I would want to talk about is maybe Bobi Wine.
Leave him for tomorrow.
Okay, let me talk about Tumukunde.
Yeah.
This was a very good election because Tumukunde has an oversized ego, and perhaps he thought that he can make any impact on this election. The election has proved that he's actually politically nothing. So I hope that he can go back home and rest and understand Ugandan politics, because he thought he always
home in Rukunjiri or home in NRM?
I think in Rubabu, where he comes from. Seriously, because Tumukunde thought he could move mountains. But politics is much more complicated. How can Bobi Wine outshine him? He's a lieutenant general, he has been a minister, he has been head of intelligence, has been a divisional commander, he has been head of CMI, he has done all...
Katumba Oye actually defeated all those generals, including Mao, in Pakwach district.
You can imagine. So Tumukunde, I think that has been... so Muntu, a great disappointment. Tumukunde, I think it will moderate him, it will tone him down. Perhaps he can now find the ground. The interesting candidate is actually Katumba. I saw in football that he got even some votes. It means that that man, Uganda is interested in comedy. He was really a comedian of a presidential candidate. And but who took himself quite seriously. And he attracted a lot of media attention because in opinion polls he even performed much better than he has performed in what?
He launched his campaign on the eve of voting.
Then at one time he did not even have transport. There is a time I remember he was campaigning, walking. He got a lot of media publicity. I think that Katumba has a future. Isn't it 23 or 24?
24.
Yes. So he has a future in politics if he plays. Yes.
I don't think so.
If he plays his cards well. People like that, you know, they laugh at them.
His future, I think, Andrew,
is in comedy.
is in some... No. He can actually win a lot of money from companies, big companies, to kind of advertise their products. For example, if I were a marketing manager of MTN or Coca-Cola, I would just create soda now, Katumbo.
But Uganda cranes, he's wearing mostly he has been wearing the Ugandan flag on him.
He has kind of clicked with the young people.
Okay, we are left with just about 8 minutes. Someone called Helen says, great show, but how come there is no lady on the panel?
I think you explained it.
We are male chauvinists. That's the answer.
Thanks, Helen. But the truth of the matter is, I reached out and my production team to about 4 or 5 different ladies, very renowned. I will not mention their names. And each of them said it's not secure to, safe to move at night. And we were meant to start at 8:39, so we couldn't push further. So these gentlemen are very wonderfully sacrificial in with their time and really life. That's why we have only men here. But I apologize for that, and it's not it's not even in our interest. Mr. Gobi, your 3 candidates, quickly.
My 3 candidates?
Yeah.
I think I was equally surprised by the performance of General Muntu. I thought he would pick more votes than he has picked. I knew, of course, that he wouldn't win this election, but at least, and I think even himself, he has been more realistic with his supporters, that he is trying to build a party.
Now that you have talked about Muntu, can I add what someone is saying? Another person called Patrick. He says, Mwenda needs not to be shy to mention that Muntu's undoing is largely the perception that he is an in-house son, just like Tumukunde. But you can make that point.
In-house son of who? I don't believe it. What I wanted to say is this, that General Muntu has always appealed to a certain class of Ugandans who are saying that could it be a time when we go back to the politics of values, to someone who's not just coming to chunk out slogans and attract a lot of attention and all of that populism. So I thought really the fact that he had also managed to pull some few MPs to join him in his party, new party, that was likely to make some inroads into especially some areas where NRM is strong and win a few votes there. But the numbers, they are reminding me of what Honorable Amama Mbabazi actually got last round when we had this election. So I'm a bit surprised that he got very few votes, or is getting very few votes. Another one is Chairman Mao. This is the second time he's running for this office under DP, and he performed very miserably, in my view. Although he managed to pick a few votes, especially in those areas where he started from, that the sectarian vote had come in. But I think this is not good for DP as a party, because DP is supposed to be one of the strongest parties in Uganda by virtue of its being one of the oldest parties in Uganda. So I don't know where my good friend Chairman Mao is going to put the drawing board, where he's having to go back and really call some of his, because to me his campaign was a bit very miserable. I looked at he was lonely. Chairman Mao, a lonely candidate, of a very big party. I could see sometimes when he was addressing the press, and there are some 2 guys seated near him, and their faces are hardly recognized. The DP is a very well-known party, and his own vice president went and supported another candidate from another party. So I thought really that also didn't augur well. Although I'm surprised that some few MPs are coming on the DP ticket. And finally, the lady, the only lady, Madam Nancy.
Linda Nancy.
Yes. I think she has had a good campaign under the circumstances. Many people I've interacted with were saying she's a brilliant lady. But
she was here on the show with you.
yes,
Yeah.
right from the beginning, we knew that she didn't stand a chance of, because in Uganda, that voting pattern where someone would say, I'm a lady, I'm going to vote a fellow lady, or something like that, those things don't work here.
Yeah.
And I think, much as she said, my fellow women, we can really, you know, pull these men and show them that we are the mothers, and we want also to arrive on the table because they are failed to lead. I think many women did not listen to that.
Okay.
So, but finally, I wanted to tell my good friend Morrison that this thing of social media is a very, very important thing which you need to really not underestimate. I'll read you for you just one statement here. During the Arab Spring, which happened in those countries we know, one of the protesters in Cairo told CNN the following words: we use Facebook to schedule the protests,
To ship it.
Twitter to coordinate, and YouTube to tell the world.
Okay, let me
Now,
just say,
let me finish. You need to understand that when government switched off the social media first, which everybody actually anticipated that they were going to,
Yeah.
most of the people that government actually was targeting in switching off had prepared also. And just move
Had migrated.
to VPN. Actually, many of them were there.
They were
because,
already there.
they refused to pay the OTT, many of them. So they can say, look what this old man, he doesn't even understand how things work. He thought that he can switch off Facebook and whatever. So I think this kind of expedited the decision of also switching off the internet so that they can be able to manage this, because there was clear kind of signs that there was an organized group which was going to use social media to influence the events during on the voting day and afterwards.
Okay. Morrison,
You see,
in 2 minutes,
yes,
your three candidates.
Yes, but Uganda runs one of the best intelligence agencies on the continent that we pay and that must have the ability to target wrongdoers, ringleaders, those who are protesters, and platform them. Because the balance of risk I was talking about, if you blanket the country in darkness and you conduct an election and you create a certain doubt, that can be much riskier than the ability to control the ringleaders by the platforming and isolating. So I really still believe that it was done in haste. There was no explainer, and I think it was both a strategic and a tactical mistake.
Okay.
On the three
candidates.
On the three candidates, I think Amuriat surprised me to the extent that I thought, yes, I believed that Besigye's feet were much bigger than his, but I thought that he would, in a way, tap into some Besigye coalition and also energize him. And he put off the shoes and moved on feet. I think those were the Besigye shoes. And at least he would get, let's say, 15%. But when I see him gravitating around 3-4%,
you know that in our election we have never had a third candidate.
Yes, but that's risk. But also this was a strange election. I thought some other
Didn't Tababa also surprise you by failing to be a strong third candidate?
then of course, General Muntu. I think for me, General Muntu, the fact that he did not make it in a way we expected, I think it's a tragedy, in my view, for some good politics in the country. I also am one of the people who believe he's a decent guy and who believes some very serious things on table. that even when you are in NRM or any other political party, you would want opposition or other actors in the politics that behave like him. I think to the extent that he hasn't performed well, it is very surprising. I know very many friends would say they would go in the booth and vote him. So clearly it looks like they did not vote for him. But I think Museveni, as a person who really reaches out, I think just like after the last elections, the president reached out to UPC and worked with UPC for the last time. I think the NRM should reach out and work with Ant. Maybe can't even bring Muntu as the prime minister or anything. But I think
your third candidate.
I think he adds value. Then of course finally it is Nancy, who I think, you know, they call it the grass seeding. I think more women should come and continue competing at that level. They should continue struggling because I think we need that balance.
There's one who ran in the last
balance in
election.
our politics.
It was Chakulia.
Chadia.
Okay, Andrew, I need you to respond to this. This is from someone called Ngobi from Jinja or Kamuli. The person says, "Hi Charles, this election has left the country bleeding, riding on the November 18-19 lives lost, some innocently, and some as claimed rioters. Others have been arbitrarily arrested and abducted. Now that we are done with the presidential elections, how should the country be reconciled? What strategies can be put in place to remedy the extreme emotive reaction to the same as we have seen with the results in Uganda, for example?"
So since we have run out of time, I can say that
in 1 minute.
It takes two sides or two people to reconcile. Because I think that Museveni can give an olive branch. I don't think the opposition will take it, because you see, Uganda's opposition politics is toxic in the sense that if Bobi Wine dares try to reach out to accept Museveni's olive branch, they will say has been compromised.
Yeah.
And that is the problem of Uganda. That's all I can say. That ultimately for this country to be reconciled, just like it takes two people to quarrel, it takes two people to reconcile. Unless Bobi Wine is like Raila and is able to hold his ethnic base, then and it's so loyal like Trump's base, it will not change. There is no opposition politician who will try to reach out to talk to Museveni and remains a strong contender there.
Okay, we are going to close now. 2 minutes to go. I have colleagues who are coming. Tony Kent Chaze is coming after this to take us up to midnight. Up to morning with Jagenda Semakula, Mazima Akol, and Laureen. They are coming to take us with the analysis and bringing in the summary of what happened today. So look out for that and keep it here. But I don't want to, with the parliamentary elections, for me, I have decided to say, congratulations, a surprising one, to some interesting colleagues. We have, I think, 4 or 5 new journalists who are joining Parliament, and Agnes Nandutu is one of them. So we want to say congratulations to Agnes Nandutu from Bududa. Thanks so much. Your defiance has paid off. She lost massively in the primaries, which is something that we should be thinking about next time to analyze. Someone loses by over 5,000 difference in the primary and then decides to come back in the main election and wins again massively. What could have happened, really? So Agnes Nandutu, congratulations for a well-fought battle. I also want to thank Joyce Bagala. I've worked with you before, from Mityana. Congratulations. And then from Kazo, all the way from Kazo, Dan Kimosho, originally of National Medical Stores, has also won. And then, of course, Bashir from Kawempe South here. Those are some of the interesting victories. Joel Senyonyi, good, your own friend. I usually enjoy your debate. Yes, I'm going to ensure that he's an indisciplined grandson. Joel, Andrew is saying you're indisciplined.
He gave him forms of youth. elections for
He
president.
gave him
Can you
a fake form.
I got the right forms, and then Joel and Bobi Wine, they lied.
Joel, did he give you
My
a fake form?
grandchildren, you are bad grandchildren.
Yes, so Joel Senyonyi, I worked with Joel here. He used to invite me to a morning show, to the morning show with late Susan, some years ago in UBC, the morning program. Then he went to NTV and moved on. Joel, congratulations for a good fought battle. And of course the old ones, Margaret, Muhanga, Semuju. So even journalists are now represented in the house.
Why are you saying
well.
even journalists?
Journalists
are
have
very
always
serious
been
people.
politicians.
Until tomorrow.
There's
Tomorrow,
one man in Georgia.
look out for this show tomorrow. When results are released, the final results are made, this team and maybe an added group will come back here to analyze from 9 p.m. So look out for that analysis, or even earlier. So look out from immediately when the results are announced. And constitutionally, the order is that Mr. Byabakama must release the results before 4 p.m. Until tomorrow, but for now, keep with the other team that is coming until in the morning. And Electoral Commission is also coming shortly with another update. Good night.